Good bride.
Okay.
People are hungover and they want to see.
That's why they need sunglasses.
I see people like me. I will fall asleep without lighting.
As soon as you can figure out how to do that, more efficient.
You guys good one. All right. So how are we doing? How are you? Yeah. All right. There's American enthusiasm for you. And there's 6th Street, it was crazy, and we get in here and everyone's like, yeah, no, we're okay. It's nice to be here. Yeah, get on with it, British boy. So my name's Luke Robert Mason, and I want to firstly thank the organisers of Body Hacking Conference for asking me to moderate this panel. But before we kick off, I want to just set the scene. Reports of our cyborg future are somewhat greatly exaggerated. At least reports that emerge at the cross-section of several often misconceived science-fictional representations of messianic or dystopian human-machine hybrids. Terminator never came to pass. Instead, events such as this reveal new ways in which the human brain and body is being reconstituted as a platform for a wide range of innovative new technologies. And these tools, maybe for the first time, look set to change the way in which we think and act on the limits of our sensory and our motor functions. But let's take a step back. Where, perhaps, did this all begin? Well, in the mid-90s, new tensions arose from an understanding of the body as limited, especially when compared to the intimidating speed and complexity of information processing. The relationship of the body to the hyper-threading processes of modern connectivity and electronic media drove an enhancement agenda of amplification or positive self-transformation. In other words, in a Western neoliberal society where high expectations are placed on an individual's achievement, it's very easy for some to start considering themselves as always and already disabled, which drives a demand for the body to be rebuilt or redesigned. And so as we hunt through the exhibition halls of this sort of conference, for these developments which could be said to offer the greatest opportunity for humanity to be extended through extraneous, non-biological, and let's face it right now, often digital tools, the imagination is allowed to feast on the promises that are embodied in recent and rapid advances in, say, material sciences, human-computer interfaces. And since these are exactly those developments which have driven important innovations for powered exoskeletons, powered upper limb prosthetics, and sensory substitution devices, we begin to get a little excited. And assuming the future will follow an evolution of the technologies visible in the present, the more techno-utopian advocates among us enthusiastically predict that the advanced versions of these technologies are developments we might reasonably expect in the near future. You guys know who you are. But what happens if we stop placing emphasis on the nature of these technologies and instead focus on how they're integrated into the body schema? What happens when these non-organic tools are recognized or recognized as not devices, but as organs? What happens when we reorient the debate on human enhancement and instead drive a discourse around experimentation, not with the amplification of the human, but with human difference? Do we need to concern ourselves less with this definition or concept of cyborg and instead ask, what does it mean to be cyborg? So, to answer some of these questions, or perhaps none of those questions, is our esteemed panel. And I want to kick off by asking Angel. So you have a very interesting personal story. And I just wonder, how does it feel to be here at a body hacking conference, considering your background and your story? And if you could share those.
Yeah, I'm a congenital amputee. I was born without my arm, never had an arm. I don't have anything to compare it to. And it's kind of different for other people, other amputees that have a story of loss. They lost something. And I understand that because like we talk about with prosthetics, they're not at the caliber of a human hand yet, or a human leg even, which is funny because legs are way further than hands are. But we're not there yet. And people keep saying things like, oh, well, it's still just a tool, it's not really an enhancement on anything I had. Mine is. Mine is an enhancement on, actually, I am enhanced. This is not what I started with. So for me, from what I was born with, I'm considered enhanced. So it's really cool to be somewhere and to be able to be with people that I feel like enjoy hearing about that and talking about it and figuring out how we're gonna make this better in the future.
Now, so explain to individuals who may not have come across you, you're a bionic actress.
Yes. So I started acting a couple years ago, and I was wearing a cosmetic, fleshy colored prosthesis, and I was faking being a two-handed person because I didn't think there was any other way I was gonna get roles. And with the state of media right now in the US, it's kind of right. It's really hard to get roles as a disabled performer, as they like to call us, PWD, performer with disability. It's kind of like, ugh. Every time I write that on my resume, I just think, ugh, I hate that. But that's how they refer to us, and that's kind of the thing that I've adapted at this point. But I was auditioning as a two-handed person for a long time, and I just got tired of it. I was like, this isn't me. And when this hand came out, I got really excited to get this hand and wear it. And then from that point on, when I kind of adopted this version of myself, like being this bionic person, the roles just started coming in. So far I've booked 3 SAG features wearing my bionic hand. Now, they're not mainstream roles. They're not me playing the daughter or the college student or the girlfriend. They're all about my arm. And I get that. Society still doesn't exactly understand where I'm coming from with different things, so they're kind of sensationalizing and they want to see it for what it is. They don't want to integrate it as a normal thing yet, because to them it's not normal. To me it's my normal. So hopefully we'll get to a point where it's everyone's normal.
So James, I want to just sort of jump to you and your fashion's normal. You shared your story yesterday on the panel in the evening, and your arm is from Aladdin Industries.
Right, yeah.
You could explain.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to create a fictional background for the arm because I explained yesterday that it's kind of comes out of nowhere. It doesn't have its own history like we do. We have 2 parents, and we have like a whole history, a lineage and everything. And I don't know, it kind of makes me think about when we start including body parts and stuff, artificial limbs. They're going to kind of have a weird classification. They're probably going to start out at a certain point in a certain state, and they're going to become more advanced, and they're going to be altered to fit like what we want, our needs and our wants as we develop through technology in the future. And so yeah, they kind of have their own speciation in a certain way, which is super interesting. So I wanted to create this background for this arm to sort of start it off. And it's got like model numbers, serial numbers of values that are just meaningful to me. So yeah, I just wanted to have that little bit of extra info for it, rather than it just being something that's, I mean, it's got personality because we designed it to look like it has, well, it looks awesome. But yeah, there's the other side of things. Like I think we all love it, especially in potentially this field. We like to have a good story. We want to have like a whole universe behind our science fiction, rather than just like a whimsical thing. So I wanted to pin that down.
So with that,
They're here to figure it out.
Well, how was last night though? Did you go out wearing it last night?
Yeah, people were just completely positive and just were kind of, I was getting just kudos for just being out there with
That's
it.
the reaction I thought you were gonna get
Yeah.
last night. I
They were
was
just
like,
like,
oh, they're gonna walk up to you
"Here's
and be
another
like,
beer, here's
if you hear
another
the
beer."
word cool when you're walking down the street, just know they're probably talking to you. As I'm walking, if I hear, that's so cool, I'll look over and they'll be like, I'm like, oh, okay, they do like way over here. So just know that that's gonna happen to you.
Same thing.
Yeah.
so you're getting like, I think it was, I either your phrase or maybe it was Sophie Oliveira-Barata's phrase, but that you guys are finding that people have prosthetic envy.
Yeah, that's something that's happening on definitely online. People are typing and saying, I really I want that. I don't. What have I got? This boring fleshy thing. Everybody has this. Like nobody. Why do I want this? I want something that lights up.
Right. Who doesn't want lights and to do all these cool things and to be able to have that kind of stuff? But at the same time, you have to realize the function of the hand
Yeah.
isn't at a hand yet.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool that now they've started to be able to customize arms and make them for us what we want. Because if you can't make it a hand yet, at least make it do other cool things like shoot glitter and stuff. Like, if you can't make it a hand, let's do fun stuff with it. Why not? So.
You know, when I saw that glitter sheet,
Yeah.
I thought that girl is evil. Everywhere.
Her
Shoots
name's Jordan,
glitter.
and she's great. Her mom's with Born to Strike organization. She's amazing. She's a congenital amputee.
That's the worst substance known to man.
Don't tell me I still have it on my face from Mardi Gras. Like I swear to you, I've showered 14 times and it just keeps showing up. You can probably see it. I swear it's there.
Yeah. If there's anything to regulate when it comes to creating new prosthetic devices,
Glitter.
it should be glitter.
Non-glitter. So, Rich, I want to ask you about your vajazzings. I want to ask you about your manipulations. Maybe not as glittery, but you are or maybe you are a grinder. You're a biohacker. You identify with the grinder community, and you have a very specific implantation that you made a decision to implant. If you could just explain that to the audience who may not know.
Sure, yeah. A lot of you already know, but I've got implanted headphones that I had installed. I had a number of different reasons for doing that. One of them was just to experiment with sensory augmentation and try to convert different things into audio and experience that. Another reason is at the time I was told by my doctor that I was going to be going blind. I wanted to take kind of be very proactive and make an attempt at something like echolocation. I didn't want to disturb people around me, so I thought, okay, maybe I'm going to be able to.
We got it. It's fine. We got this. Yeah, we turned the rest of them on. Here. There we go. Just in case. They took us seriously.
So part of the project was for me to potentially compensate for loss of vision. Lucky for me, just so everybody knows, I was misdiagnosed. I do have one eye that is it's had it. There's no cure at the moment for my condition, but so I've got one good eye that's going to be okay. So it's not going to fail, hopefully. But at the end of the day, this one eye is doing all the work, so it's just I get a lot of eye strain and things like that. So I use my implants primarily now. I use a text-to-speech, just program on my phone, just so that something can be read to me, because I can't read at the end of the day. So I start off really good, but just the eye fatigue just really gets to me. So anyway, so that's I guess what I'm most well known for at the moment, but I've got other projects that I do too. So
where does the motivation for you personally come from? Is it this medicalized body and the issue of losing sight, or is it something else that was always driving that desire to?
I think sensory projects, sensory augmentation, and just expansion is something that's really profound, and I think could potentially have a huge impact on humanity. If anyone's ever seen a video of somebody getting a cochlear implant turned on, and there's a moment where somebody experiences for the first time sound, I mean, those are just really moving videos. And I look at those and I know that there are senses that we don't currently have. And someday when those are discovered, or when those are, devices or things are introduced that we can have that will just enrich everything that's going on around us, I think that's going to be so profound that people will say, everyone's got to have this. now here's a new sense, and we'll look at everyone who doesn't have it as, somebody we've got to uplift, I guess, for lack of a better word, I guess. But I think that, anyway, that's something that drives me.
Do you think,
One of the things.
to your point around uplifting, do you think we'll all uplift to a baseline, or will there be differentiated folks? Not everybody's going to want not everyone's not going to want the headphones in the ears, or
Sure, and that's fine, but
arms, or-
and that's fine. But let's say if we have something that's an easy procedure that would allow somebody to see in infrared, in the near infrared spectrum. Well, that'd be really awesome. But in fact, Gabriel's worked on a project like this that you guys could talk to him about later. Amazing. No, that wasn't. But who knows? Who knows? Maybe we'll figure out something in the future. But I could see something like media, like let's say movies, right? Now introducing in their films things that are in the near infrared spectrum. And so if you basically can't see near infrared, then you just can't enjoy that portion of the film. So I can see like maybe art adapting to these new senses, and then other people just wanting to naturally experience all the richness of the new sense. So I hope that answers your question.
It does insofar as, are we getting caught up in this word enhancement? I know you say you're enhanced
For me.
for you personally, and do you think it is a subjective personal experience as to how you want to deal with your own morphology or differentiated morphology?
It should always be. You should have the option to do what you want to do with yourself, and your self-concept is the most important thing, like how you feel about yourself. So if you feel like you're enhanced, then you probably are, It's just, it's the idea of giving the person the choice to do how they want to do. Like one of the examples I like to talk about is like hearing aids. People made hearing aids flesh-colored so people could hide them and different things like that, but it was the people who didn't wear them that made them. And they were like, of course you want to hide that you have a hearing aid because it's bad that you can't hear. Like, who are you to say that? Like, now they have hearing aids that are like graphite colored, and some guy I saw on the internet said the other day, well, I wore them because they match those black pants that I wear all the time. And it's like, he should have the option to do what he wants to do with his body, and if that's an enhancement to him, then that's what matters,
Maybe I should readdress my body image then. Maybe I need to consider myself enhanced, because
You don't have to, that's your choice.
But what I'm thinking is that maybe I shouldn't have been so presumptive to have been able-bodied in the first place.
How
like
able-bodied people.
One of my professors at uni, she basically was like, "Don't assume you're fertile. Like, why do you assume you're fertile? You
Right.
don't know yet. You've not tried, right?
Mhm.
Maybe. I don't know. but you don't know. So it's like an ability that we're just taking for granted.
Mhm. Yeah, I can see what you're saying, but I mean, obviously I don't want to make anyone feel like their self-concept is wrong, because you're in charge of that. Like, that's yours. So, I mean, I'm never going to tell you what you just decided about your body is wrong. I can just tell you that I may have a different opinion for myself. So, however you want to think of yourself, James, I think it's great.
You're definitely a camp counselor. Right?
I am a camp counselor.
So James, with that, so how are you dealing with the attention that you're attracting now? Suddenly it's been so visceral, and a lot of people were drunk last night, but how are you dealing with that?
I don't know, it's fairly nice. I've not really reflected on it yet, but it's nice to have some positive attention. I mean, I'm not seeking attention, but it's nice to have the positive attention rather than the tutting, the pity, and people shaking their heads. Like, people just stand next to you on the bus in London, and they'll be like, "That's awful," and they'll just say it out loud and just tell you how bad it is. You don't hear it, so this is actually really nice. I've got this weird thing, and then I don't know. I was speaking to Rich McKinnon yesterday, and he was basically saying, "It's not you, though, is it? It's the arm. So it's not me, right?"
I can't even start on that right now.
We'll start on that. We got an hour to go. Come on, let's go.
It's your arm. That is, you designed that. You created Aladdin. You did everything that had to do with that arm. Like, of course, Sophie and everybody was involved. But like you said, you personalized that and customized it. It made it part of you. Like you feel attached to that, right?
I want to defend myself here.
I'm not mad at you.
I know you're not.
I'm not. It's interesting. It's interesting in what you said. I think it's important though, because I think it's obviously the novel nature of the situation.
Right, that's true.
If everyone had their own different arms, people would be like, oh, that's actually not as good as
You know,
Rich's new leg.
Honestly, I know a guy with six-pack abs, and he kind of says something similar. He's like, "It's not me, it's the abs."
Yeah, totally. And the hat, right? Your hat.
Well, Nigel Ackland, the mutual friend, who also a BDYHAX user, he has people coming. He's been on the sort of conference track for a while, and he has people constantly coming up to him asking for selfies. And now he's got to the point where he's like, you know what? There we go. Take the selfie with the arm, and I'll stand over here.
I occasionally just like twist it off and just like hand it to people. I'm just like, if you want to see it, here it is. Like I'll just be like, okay, here you go. Which apparently is a little jarring for people to see. It doesn't hurt, I promise. And then I pop it right back on and it's done. So it's kind of the cool plug and play aspect of it. I'm like, if you want to see it, here it is. Don't drop it, but you can see it and look at it. And then now with yours, you can kind of do that too. A little heavier than mine though.
Yeah. It's real heavy.
And so with regards to the realities of using these technologies, aesthetically they look beautiful. They're beautiful objects. They're desirable objects. You have people come up to you going, how do I get one of those? And I know that others of Sophie's patients turn around and go, look, it's the most exclusive club in the world. It's going to cost you an arm or a leg to get in. So you guys, you know, there's different reactions to that. But how does it feel? Knowing that, you know, as you said, it's heavy. You've got to strap this thing on. There's aesthetically it might be beautiful, but the realities of using it day to day, or with your work, Rich, like the realities of having these devices implanted, there's potentiality of complication. How do you make sure that that piece is communicated, or do you just choose not to for a particular reason?
I'm not a fan of the false front. I'm happy to like show the weaknesses, because sometimes, yeah, you get people that are they're wearing it and they're just like, you see them only on the good days basically, and the rest of the time they'll be I'm happy to tell you guys that at home I'm in a wheelchair. I don't bother wearing a leg because it's too much effort. And basically, wheeling around is the ultimate thing in a chair, right? A chair with wheels. I don't have to get up. I can go and just make a cup of tea and like roll back over. It's fine.
And that's your choice. There it is. You're allowed to do that.
It's fine. I don't know. It's the false image which isn't great. I'm happy to explain that today. Like people like, oh, you're thinking it. You think it, and it happens. I'm like, no. It's like I'm just moving muscles like you move your face when you speak to me. And it's basically picking up the signals. It's not me thinking. It's me thinking in a way, but
they don't like that answer.
They don't like it. They want you to just.
They want you to be thinking, because my sensors are very similar to James. It's muscle impulses. That's what it's picking up on, the muscle impulse. And they'll be like, so how do you do it? By just like thinking about moving your hand? No. It's more so like if you were.
That would be so hard to do.
Because you don't think about moving your real hand. You just do it. But so it's more so like I'm bending my wrist, which is a little different intuitively. And they'll be like, so, but technically you're thinking about it. I'm like, well, technically you think about everything, like everything. Your brain does it. Yeah, my brain does everything. So I guess whatever. You're right. Yeah, your brain controlled. I guess so. I don't know. I don't argue with you anymore.
Where do you think that miscommunication is coming from, and especially with what grinders are doing? There's the drive for clickbait within the press. Do you think there's an issue there that's
a serious
negative
problem.
Communication about the reality of these?
Yeah, that's a serious problem. In fact, my implants really, that was just kind of like a proto experiment. You know, it was like it wasn't a finished product. I put some pictures on Facebook and it went viral. I wasn't expecting that at all, but I had, I think, 3 or 4 actual media people contact me and ask me questions, and the rest of it was just aggregated news stories. So basically there are 900 other news stories based on these other news stories that people had written, and just kind of, you know, aggregated it all together. And so there were a lot of misconceptions. And Gabriel's work with Science for the Masses, sorry man, keep pointing to you. I mean, there's No, there are a lot of misconceptions about the things that happen there, and Amol, Grafstra, same thing, Grindhouse Wetwares, they're all a lot of liberties taken, you know, when they describe the technology and the stories and things like that, and I think, you know, so things get kind of out of control there. But.
So what do audiences such as this and individuals who are coming to this, what do we do to tackle that? Or do we just allow it to be?
You know, I think for me, since grinding, I've learned to identify the technologies that are being used in things. And so I see news stories all the time, or, you know, just clickbait stuff, you know, that, you know, aging has been reversed in mice and things like that. And I just, you know, I scan it real quick and I identify with something. I'm like, okay, no.
No,
you know,
that's not actually what they're
right,
talking
yeah.
about. Okay.
Yeah, or I'll see another thing about DARPA, you know, Project DARPA's working on with, you know, right, yeah, stuff like that. And then I scan through it and I can identify, okay, no, the media's over-exaggerated this again, and this is what's really, you know, these are the limitations of the technology. So I guess the answer there is just knowing about the different technologies and their limitations, you know, is key to being able to identify clickbait and you know, the headlines and just say, okay, this is garbage. Okay, this is what's really going on, or whatever. And it helps me to filter things anyway.
Do you think that we should utilize it, being in the zone, and just try and run with it just to get public interest and finance in the area? Or do we just, and then what
That's
do we
what's hard,
disappoint
yeah.
them and say, no, it's not actually working?
Right.
Or give us more money now? Or just, what do we say?
What's challenging, and we're going to open this up to audience questions soon, so we don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be scary.
Yeah.
But it's crazy when you get the audience questions that are like, so when we upload our minds in 2045, and you're sitting there going, where the fuck are you getting this shit from?
I mean, yeah, cool, but maybe I don't even know if it's working hard yet.
But then there's that piece, and also some of the pioneers, like there's miscommunication there, like the brain control prosthetics were essentially like
Not exactly what you think they are.
So Connor and I had this conversation. A gentleman who I'm not going to name, who develops 3D printed prosthetics, not open bionics, was doing a brain control prosthetic, and we joked that, you know, it's alpha wave, you close your eyes, your arm grips. It's not a brain.
I just want you to know, when I saw the video about that guy, I was so excited. I was like, because the way the media represented it, I sat there and I'm telling you, like, honest to God, I started crying. And I'm gonna get upset about it now, but like, it really, I was like, this is so cool. And then when I realized what it was and that it was completely misrepresented, I was like, that's not fair. Like, that you made me feel like that. Like, it really upset me, because that's the issue with them sensationalizing all these things. Like, of course I want these cool things. And when you misrepresent something, like, you don't realize the population that you're playing with their emotions. So it really ticked me off, honestly. I'm kind of mad about it. But at the same time, I'm glad that they're talking about tech that should happen. Like, that should be something that we have, and it should be something that's developed. But when you're telling people we've already done it, are they stopping trying to figure out what they should be doing? Like, where is the disconnect, and how can we make sure that it continues on with forward progress? And
yeah, it's hard too, because a lot of times these companies will go and make a device, and they're still, you know, they're seeking funding, or they need media attention to continue to do some, you know, R&D and things like that. So that's a tricky point.
right,
Yeah,
that's a very good point, because for him to continue on, or the person to work on that, they obviously need some type of funding, even though it is supposed to be 3D printed, so much more affordable. But still, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Everything costs money. So, but my kind of thing is with media representation, like we talked about it yesterday, like in your talk you mentioned, like showing what would be really cool. Like when you're seeing games like Metal Gear Solid, you're seeing games like Deus Ex and all these different things like that, and Terminator, iRobot, all that stuff, everybody thinks, okay, that's where it should be at. But I don't think anybody knows where it actually is. And that's what kind of upsets me about not having mainstream people on television that have these type of things, so people know this is actually where it's at, so they can see the disconnect. Because why would they know that? It doesn't affect their life. They don't really have, if they don't have anyone in their life that has this type of difference, they wouldn't know to say that there's a disconnect. So when it's not being represented correctly through the media or through these things, people have no idea where they need to have that room of, we need to get from here to here. And that's frustrating to me, because we exist as people, like we're around, and it's like you should know that this is where we're at.
I think I can remember one correct example,
Yeah.
which was, I think it was a Transformers movie where there was a soldier with like a lower leg
Yeah.
amputation. He had like an electronic ankle.
Yeah.
That's pretty close.
Yeah, that's a good one. It's true, like.
That's
and-
the only one. I can't think of anything else.
But did they make it, so this is my other gripe with that, is when they're showing some stuff like that, is like, did they make it like the amputee was.
Oh, he's doing real well.
Yeah, it depends. Like they'll either go, "Oh my gosh, this guy's kicking ass, and
Yeah.
he's so good at every day is awesome," or they'll be like, "Their life is sad, everything sucks. Let's talk about how we can help the amputee because for them." So it's hard because it gets to be polarizing ends, and you're going, which one is it? And then of course I feel like it's probably closer to this end a lot of the time, in my opinion. When they look at it, they're like, we have to help them. They need help. Like Furiosa, who I love Furiosa, right? Everyone? I cosplayed as Furiosa for Comic-Con this year. And that was awesome to have like a badass character who had one arm. Nobody asked her what happened. Nobody asked her if she needed help. Nobody asked her if things. At one point, Max gave her the gun to make the shot he couldn't make. And I was like, yes! Like now, Charlize Theron is not an amputee. I understand the concept of needing a name for a film, so I wasn't that bummed
You're
about
available,
it.
right?
I was available. I was available. But I love Charlize Theron. I feel like she really did the role justice, so I can't even be mad about it. I'm like, take the win that she portrayed a strong, badass female, which isn't often, who also was an amputee. So that was really cool to me to show that kind of thing. Now, obviously, there was, at the end of the movie, I don't remember if you saw, but she was having a really hard time and she falls down her knee. She just throws her arm off. She's like, F this, and she's upset. And that's kind of how it, like, some days you're mad. I'm like, I'm gonna throw my arm across the room. It's a little expensive. Don't tell my company. But you feel like that because, you know, and I felt like that was a pretty good portrayal of that kind of thing.
So there's exactly that piece with the grinder community as well.
Yes.
It looks clean, it looks easy to some degree, but again, you're the fifth panelist, Gabriel, but as Gabriel pointed out, this shit's really hard, you know, to get it right. And there's so many individuals who could potentially make mistakes on their own course if they're not educated correctly.
Right.
Of course, the grinder community is highly informed, but what if there's a kid who's
Right.
messing with this stuff on his own accord, which could bring,
And attributed to you guys. You know.
unfortunately.
You know, it does happen. So
Not surprised.
I don't know.
Nobody's lost a finger yet.
Nope.
Which is actually really impressive.
Right, yeah. No, I don't think there have been any fingers lost yet. But so I don't know. There have been some implant rejects, right? And there's been biocompatibility stuff. Failures there, but those failures are communicated back to the rest of the group.
That's what's important.
The information is there if somebody wants to go and find it. So if somebody just wants the end result and just wants to go straight to that,
That's gonna be a problem.
their perception of that, I'm not sure how to control that, honestly. Yeah. But
You need to police that, Rich. That's you.
no, I'm not a very good role model either. So that's I have a lot of experiments
you're great too,
go really bad. So yeah.
But that's the thing, is you let people know afterwards and where the problem came from.
I
He's like,
am going to try to make an effort to communicate my failures more because I see the importance of it.
Depending on which body part it is.
Right. Yeah.
So now we know why
That's
James
coming
is
up.
infertile. There we go.
That's not what he said.
Yeah, okay. So look, to go back to
I get it from a researcher perspective, but at the same time, it's like, hey, I really want to play with that, like, please. So the IMEs are implantable myoelectric sensors. So similar to what I have on my muscle, except for they're about the size of a grain of rice, and they're implanted into your muscles at this area and allow for a lot more muscle interaction. So when I only have 2 sensors, and how many sensors do you have? 2?
5.
You have 5?
Sorry.
They're a little different. How they work is because yours are higher. When you're having the forearm sensors, it's the 2 main muscle groups. When you have back, it's different muscle groups. So they're not exactly the same, but it allows for a certain amount of input. When you're putting the sensors under the muscle or into the limb, it allows for a lot more input or recognition in what you're doing. So it would be much easier, and I wouldn't say, straight thought to hand, but easier to move my hand and have it do what I want when I want, as opposed to having like some of the limbs now are like to do 1 up switches grips, or if I do 3 downs, which makes sense to me, that's pretty much like I'm doing this, it switches to another grip. Or if you do both at the same time, that's a lot to remember, especially if you're someone who had a traumatic brain injury, you know, like a veteran or something like that. That's a lot to have to remember that I want to point my finger. So the IMEs make things a lot easier and allow the information to get from one place to another faster and easily. So that's something I keep bugging them about that I'd really like to try, and hopefully, for functionality wise, it would make things so much easier, you know? To get to point A to point B faster is all that really matters.
Otherwise, you're going to just have to shut your hand in the door, the little arm in the door,
Yeah.
repeatedly.
Poor little arm, he's so
And
cute
say,
though.
wow, it's trauma now.
Yeah, no, yeah, now it's trauma, yeah, no. Well, that's the idea. That's the idea, is like, you know, what does that really mean? Like, technically, I still congenital amputee, so they have worries like, well, what if your muscles are set up differently?
Oh, I see. Okay.
Do you know, an MRI.
You missed out talking about the sweat as well, right?
Say again? Oh, the sweat. Oh, that's a big one.
Mm.
I'm from Louisiana, and you're from London. I don't know how hot it gets there, but
I'm hot.
he's like, I don't care. I'm hot.
I'm wearing thick leather right now.
Oh,
all
okay.
over my back.
Yeah. So I wear my sensors in my arm, and it got to be a point where my arm would be slipping off at the end of the day, and your electrodes, when they get out of position, it doesn't allow you to move your limb as well as you could. You know, and I'm constantly, this sounds so gross, but like I'm dumping out my arm halfway through doing things. So sorry guys, TMI. But it's true, like you end up so sweaty and it messes with your sensors. So what's the point of wearing this if I can't use it? It's just like a really heavy paperweight. Or, you know, if I want to hit somebody, that too. But the idea is just that it makes things easier and something you don't have to think about constantly. Like it's not so much like a thing you're wearing now, so it's more so part of me, even though I do consider my arm, like this is my arm. I get in trouble a lot about interviews because I'm like, something my arm, and they'll be like, do you mean your prosthesis? And I'm like, yeah, but it's mine. Like, I don't know if you're understanding this, it's mine. So I have to be like, oh right, my prosthesis, I apologize. But it just makes, I don't know, it easier than having to think about stuff.
Definitely. I mean, even with the leg, no electrodes.
Right.
When I like go on the treadmill, I get squirts of sweat coming from the leg up my leg.
Yep.
And it's even slipped
And then
off
it's all
completely.
over the treadmill, and you're
Yeah.
like, when I'm at the gym, that's the worst, like, because it's dripping out, and I'm just like, it wasn't me, I don't know who did that.
There's when I was at my prosthetics clinic, the first time they spoke about myo arms to me,
Yeah.
they were describing a guy who said he basically had come back from holiday and was like, I don't know what's going on, but my it's literally not worked, and he kept going back for like business or something actually. And he got to, basically he was in India, and he just couldn't use his arm in India because of the temperature difference compared to living. It's just like tech in the lab versus tech in real life.
Right, practical.
IMEs are actually practical.
Yeah.
Electrodes are great for just sticking it on if you're sat there.
Yeah.
It's not good for.
Not so much for going for a run.
Yeah.
Although I don't know, that's pretty heavy. You can build up some shoulder muscles with that one.
Yes.
But your osteo is really cool.
Yeah, the osteo would make a big difference because this is just bolted on, strapped over my residual limb, so there's like a tiny bit of my humerus left. And it's kind of rattling around in there, to be honest, which isn't comfy if you've had it like sawed off by a train, whatever. Trains are nightmares. But the osteo is basically where you bore out a bit of your bone marrow and you dig up and you scratch it all out, and they coat you. They put some weird plasma in there, which they just chuck in with like a little spatula. I've seen the video. It's ridiculous. You think they might spray it evenly, but no, they just
Glob it in there.
and then they hammer it in. This big
I
spiky
don't know if you should have
rod.
watched this.
And I'm fundraising for this.
Yeah.
In two limbs at once.
Yeah, but the practical implications of it, you're like, okay, you
Yeah.
saw that and you're like, I don't care still.
Yeah.
I'd do it.
Yeah, it's so worth it because with my current leg, I've got like loads of layers of gels and weird things and socks. And I have to kind of regulate how many socks I have. It kind of, if my leg's too big or it's inflamed, it's completely different, and it kind of gets in the way of you. You have to think about it. It's the thinking thing. You have to be really cautious and budget with your time on leg, and know that you need to rest.
How long in the morning is it gonna take me to get my leg on or my arm
Pretty
on?
much.
Or, yeah, am I gonna be late because
I
I
never get to answer the door in time.
Yeah.
I just
They
really,
leave.
It's so annoying. And basically, if you watch the videos of people with osteo, they just there's different mechanisms because there's like a bit of competition in the field.
Which is great.
Which is great. Some of them just need a little Allen key twist, so you have to have your own like keyring Allen key with you all the time. But others just bolt straight on, and it's so. I mean, like you said with you discovering about the apple brainwave thing. When I first saw that, I was just like, oh my god, this is it. Like this is what I need to get, and I had this weird drive. I'm basically focusing my whole life now on trying to just reach this goal because I feel like for you it's different, maybe
Right.
for everybody it's different. All entities are different.
Right? We are not the same people.
We are not the same. Just wherever it is different. How it happened is different. And so for me, I feel like I'm not going to get along with arms in a kind of utile way without having an implant because I can't direct it around.
It's too much, right? It's too much stuff happening for you to like make it work.
Yeah, this guy's just sitting on my shoulder and just being there really heavy. I can kind of pose it in different ways. I could probably get a powered elbow that would move itself up.
But elbows are not very good right now anyway. They
They're
haven't
not
spent
too
enough
great.
time on that. So
what would be great? Just a stick of metal with a gripper on the end or something. And it would just mean I could just grab stuff. I can lift things up. I can do nothing like that now.
and I think people don't realize, they kind of take that kind of stuff for granted. You're like, I just want to reach over and grab things without having to worry about spending 15 minutes putting on my arm, So, for you, that'd be really cool.
I know. I feel like
You guys worry about upgrade culture, all three of you.
Right.
yeah.
In terms of you have that done and then there's something else.
Totally.
You're constantly. And
That's
you said,
happening to me
James,
right
it's like,
now.
yesterday you're like, I've had enough surgery. And
Yeah.
in your case, Richard, maybe you
Yeah, so-
want some more. But
So for me, I mean, yeah, there's a real possibility I get something implanted, and in 18 months it's half the size. So
Yeah, you're like,
right. But honestly, I look at it really differently because when the new model comes out, I'll just want to get that
Yeah,
one.
you're just excited about it,
Yeah, and I'm fine going under the knife or whatever with it.
person
But,
by person.
yeah, so it would be a person by person thing, really.
It's
But-
happening. It's happening. It's hard to just draw
Yeah,
attention
God.
back. But it's kind of interesting because with the osteo implants, the main thing at the moment is to worry about skin integration. So you have this metal bone, I guess, sticking out of your skin, and they kind of spray it with some nanoparticle coating that stops bacteria adhering and trying to get in and infect you. But that's it. You literally have this open wound forever.
Which is why I'm terrified of it.
It's terrifying. People can have infections that go straight into the bone marrow, and it can be a systemic infection. And so what they're working on now is having skin integrations. They've got different ways of doing it. One of the ways I'm trying to research this with the guys.
And
They
you're like,
have-
hurry up and do it.
I know.
Yeah.
It's just not. They've been doing the first clinical trial. The results coming out in March. So it's like, what do I do? Do I just get it
Soon.
now? Do I wait for like 3 years? There's another guy who's starting to do trials. He's literally chopping off pig's legs next month and starting to try his implants out.
Yeah.
And that's one that's going to include stuff like
Right.
integration with IMEs, so that you can have it all plugged in and just literally slam it all at once.
We just want them all to work together. Can you just please all work together? Just make it only
So we can
two.
swap hands at parties.
Yeah.
So yeah, the transdermal issue is also big in the grinder community because if you want to have devices, sticking out of your body but under your skin at the same time, there are some hygiene issues
Right.
that occur. And but basically there are some materials that are being worked on right now, even in the grinder community, downstairs at the booth, the Thought Emporium guys. There's Yeah, he's talking later, but he's actually got a really cool transdermal coating that he's working on. I think Gabriel helped too, right? And so basically to help fuse these things, right? Basically, so that you don't have an open wound.
Right.
It's a gradual transition. So, and that's a huge thing. That is going to help out the grinding community, the amputee community, a lot of other communities.
Right.
That's
You don't,
Pretty
we
much
don't
the
know.
most important thing. Isn't
Right,
it?
we don't know like the practical uses yet until they start doing it, how many people could get like benefit out of that, so
Right.
it's pretty cool.
Do we still think it's all going to be silicone and carbon fiber? Do you think that if the possibility came up that biohacking became biological, it became where you were playing with the possibility to not turn into one of these press people we were demonizing earlier, but you could grow your own arm,
Yeah.
would you?
For me, I think it's different. I was born without my arm.
Uh-huh.
I You know, I don't see myself as a two-handed person. I used to get that my whole life when the first arm transplants started happening. And they were like, are you gonna get one? No. This doesn't sound like something I want. Now, am I not happy with my current state of prosthetics? Like, yeah, I feel like they could be better. But I don't ever see myself going out and trying to get a second hand. So, I mean, maybe like iRobot style could do fleshy on the outside, mechanical on the inside, maybe. But I feel like I'd always still want the option of doing whatever I wanted to do with my arm. So it depends on what's happening with the tech. Like it's interesting to think about and just figuring out what they actually have and what's going to be available, and that's obviously going to base it off of that. But I don't know if I'd ever really want the fleshy stuff.
I think you probably have to wait for a lot of success to happen, because if you know, it's
I'm not going to test that one.
It's different
No.
to be charging something up and bolting it on
Mhm.
rather than now I actually have to keep this alive. Like it's my job.
Mhm.
It's not like cut this and down to it.
Yeah, it's a very expensive investment.
It's probably cheaper just to replace a plastic hand than it is to grow a whole fleshy one.
And with biohacking and grinding community, is it moving less away from silicone and more towards silicone, or is it still very much?
You know, the people definitely have their biases in the community. You know, there's some that have a bias towards the cybernetic end and the machinery stuff. Then we've got the bio guys too. And I think a lot of times, you know, really the, I think that sometimes the tool you use, you know, it could be better if it's bio. Another tool could be better if it's a cybernetic implant or something like that. But it's, so it's kind of really depends on what you're doing. I try not to have a bias. I don't have strong points in either of those things, like engineering wise or anything like that. I know generalities, and I just go to my friends who are geniuses in the area, and you know, say, hey, will this work? So yeah, I guess, you know, if you're a biologist, then usually you know the tools available to you, and you know, you kind of have more of a bias towards biology. And if you're an electrical engineer, then you can kind of say, you know, this is the route that I'm going to try to go and do this thing. But actually, the cool thing about grinding is like actually having everyone talking about a project,
Right.
you know, and then sharing their expertise and things like that. That's been really cool.
That's the thing, is like I don't want, for me, being different my whole life, I don't like when people tell people what they have to do. Like I don't know when different became bad. Like why do we all have to have one way we do something? Like, you know, I don't know why, like you have to be like, okay, we're gonna go towards more like the silicone, or we're gonna go more towards the biological. Like why can't we do whatever you wanna do and have that be okay or you know, acceptable, because, you know, we are different, diversity is important. Like like in biology, diversity is very important. Like I don't know when it became that different was like this negative thing. Like do what you want to do and that should be okay. I know it's not. I know that's not the current self-concept of anybody. Mostly in the US, I can't speak for the UK. The UK has a lot more disabled people on television, so I'll say that, but that are in mainstream roles. But it's the idea that, you know, you should be able to handle it how you want to handle it and have that be okay.
And I don't know, like being in body modification circles and having friends in there too, I totally respect, you know, diversity and having people look different. That to me is exciting.
Right.
You know, when people actually look different and they're taking, you know, different steps. And I completely support hyperdiversity. And I think that humanity, one of the best things that they can do is just shake hands and walk away from each other at some point and say, guess what? We're not all evolving in the same direction. We're going our own separate ways. And I'm gonna look like this, you're gonna look like that. And tomorrow, I could look like something else.
That's exactly the issue with the sort of mid-90s enhancement agenda, the morphological freedom agenda, where it's all about better enhanced, and we're all going the same way.
Right.
And I agree with you guys.
But
What
even
it
if
means
you're
to
not,
human
yeah.
is on a spectrum, and it's
Yeah.
a spectrum of difference.
Right.
And to that point, I want to open up to the audience because there's lots of difference in our audience. Please, any questions? Wow. Couple of
questions.
Please.
Well, I've heard a lot from James about his involvement, a little from Rich. My question's for Angel. Have you been involved in the development of your limbs over time? And if not, could you speak to just the evolution of them since you've had it all your life?
So I am the youngest in the world to wear a myoelectric prosthesis. I got the Autobox sensor hand at 4 months old. I was not involved in that one. That was their hand. And I wore that type of hand for a very, very long time because there were no changes in the technology from, it was almost 20 years before there was any change. And then that's when, you know, military stuff and the war and funding and all these things started happening really quickly. And the first hand I wore was another multi-articulating hand, and I got no say in that. There would be some times where I'd be like, you know, I had this idea about how I think they could fix this or change this, and they're a bigger company and they weren't really going to take my advice from what, even though I'm like, hey, I'm wearing it,
Right.
it didn't really work out. But after that, I did the DECA study, which was really cool to be able to test a hand, the Luke arm, if you guys know what that arm is. And it was a big arm. It was 6.5 pounds, and it was 3 times the size of my arm, but it was cool. It had a wrist that was active, so I could use my electrode sensors to bend and flex the wrist, which is not currently on the market. And that was the coolest thing. I didn't care that it weighed 6.5 pounds. So, I mean, obviously, when I talked to them, I was like, you know, obviously, I would like it lighter. But I was able to give a lot of input on that. That hand is still not on the market. And then with this hand, when I got the BDYHAX small hand, because I was one of the first to wear it, they have taken a lot that I've said into account. And what I love about this company is that they're constantly updating and changing things. There was a thing that they didn't think about in the lab. The engineers didn't think about this. When the hand dies, so if the hand died, it just died. It stayed there. Well, say somebody was driving and the hand died. Practical application they didn't think of in the lab of, oh no, they're stuck on the steering wheel. So with that happening, somebody contacted them and said, hey, this happened to me, and they immediately did a firmware update. And I hooked my the Bluetooth to my computer, to the software, updated the new version, and then now when my hand dies, it auto opens. So it was an easy fix, and it was something they were like, that's a problem, you're right, let's address that. And there's other things where like they just added, I felt like my thumb was kind of slow, and they're like, you know what, you're right, for how fast the rest of the fingers are, let's add, they got a new motor for the thumb. So it's been really cool that they're, and it's not just me, it's the other people that are wearing the hand too. As they send them in to be serviced, they're like, we're gonna add in that new thumb motor for you. So they're constantly upgrading and listening to people is why I really feel like this small company that I'm working with now is doing really well.
And
So,
they're called what?
BDYHAX, Steeper is the parent company out of the UK. Steeper?
Super.
Yeah, they're fantastic. Recently, I had an audition where they wanted a person with a prosthetic arm to play the piano well. And I was like, from what I can do, you know, right now, you know, I can some chopsticks. So I was gonna learn chopsticks. So I sat down to do it, and I would do well most of the time, but half the time, my finger would be off the key because I couldn't feel where my finger was.
Right.
I couldn't tell where my finger was on the key. And for a while, I never thought about like haptic feedback or the sensory feedback stuff because I was like, I don't really care if I'm touching hot or cold. I actually kind of like that I can touch things that are really hot and cold that nobody else can touch. That's okay with me. But then when it started occurring to me that I was like, oh, I don't know where I'm setting my arm in relation to the keyboard, it started being like, okay, this is why I want that. So for me, that would be cool, just to know placement and feeling of whether I can tell the ridge of, am I about to fall off this key? Like, you know, just to have some sort of indication of where my hand is, you know? I don't know how that would be accomplished. That's up to you. Okay.
I would love it as well for feet. With sockets, there's a big wall between you and your foot, essentially.
Right.
So with this guy, if I put him down on something, I like it just inside my bone can move around. So it's like it's a big old bucket of like goo essentially, and layers of socks and stuff. So yeah, there's times when I'm standing on like a slope and I can't even tell where my foot is. If I'm cycling, my foot sometimes just flies off the pedal because I've not noticed that it's sort of been slipping away
Right.
off the pedal.
Slowly falling off, yeah.
That is painful on your groin when you start. That's sensory feedback. So I would like to stop that before it happens. Please find a way.
Also dropping a plate, that's another one. Like I'll put a plate in my hand and I'll think I have a good grip on it, and then say how the weight of it could start sliding and slipping, and I don't know that. I have no idea that that's happening until I drop all my food on the floor. And then that becomes, oh great, the girl with one arm dropped her food and everybody's going, oh no. Oh, like not this. So it would be nice to know that kind of thing, you know, just to have a general
Sense of
feeling.
pressure.
Yeah, pressure would be good.
What would you do, Rich? What extra sensory feedback?
Oh, there's all kinds of extra. Yeah, no, I've got a long list of just different things that I'd love, you know.
Yeah.
Just something just detecting motion, you know, around me. Echolocation is something that I've been working on. So,
That's a cool one.
yeah, which is just like a great spatial awareness thing. The little amount that I've been able to achieve with it has actually been pretty profound. I think it's going to be pretty cool. I think it's going to be a really cool sense. Just like I had this experience where I was in a room testing out this thing, and before I was divorced, my wife was opening up a door in another room behind me, and I didn't see her or anything, but all of a sudden I became aware of this like extra space. You know, just had this spatial awareness that like something had opened up, so I turned around to look, and she had just opened up her door, and that was it.
You could have like a face recognition camera that only picks out when a face is looking at you. It'll send you a buzz, and you're like, oh, someone's there.
Just said ex-wife sense. I think we have time for one more question, and then we're going to have to conclude. Richard, I'm going to give you.
I want to follow up on your point you were making earlier about a morphological agenda. Right, it's a great concept. So both of you, James and Angel, you have anthropomorphic limbs, right? And I'm wondering if you're already entertaining the thought of future limbs, maybe not necessarily, I'm going to say it, being limited to what a human limb would be.
Right.
Maybe one with suction cups or anything. I mean,
Tentacles. Everybody's seen
again, it's
tentacle. I know you
personal.
have.
It's personal to your own feelings. You know, maybe it'd be great to be able to bend your arm in not just the elbow, but in the other direction. You know, I mean.
I saw art project that had the ball joint, so she could position it in any direction. I was like, that's cool. I don't know how you feel about it.
I would adopt it.
Yeah.
One of my immediate thoughts is like becoming like a hive have a swarm of nano robots that all just link up.
You already have a drone, right? He has
Yeah.
a drone that links onto his arm. So.
I mean, like the classic example is basically that silver dude from Terminator. I can't remember. Like he's something.
Yeah.
He can just mold into whatever he wants. So if there's a way to do that, that could be really awesome.
That'd be awesome.
Just metal.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a human arm, but I don't know. I think the fact that we've got it's the robots or it's the veterans. So it's like the factory tech, like little things like you may have seen. I saw an awesome one yesterday, like a funny little robot that like sucks cereal and tries to make this girl breakfast. And it's like a comedy.
Right,
So
right,
he's
right,
like
right.
Russian, yeah.
Yeah, a British girl, right?
Yeah.
She's great.
So basically, we could either have sort of like robot tech, like a multi-articulated car assembly arm, miniaturized, or we can have hand stuff, because I think the hands are being made because they're just the civilian, well, they're the military people, but
They think that's what we're supposed to wear.
yeah, I think
And they act like a lot. This is my opinion. I feel like they think that they're doing what we want, but I think it's because they feel that we are not happy being different. They want us to look like them.
That's the agenda.
We've got a bit
Right.
of experience at it, so we're okay by now.
And nobody's asking us these questions.
Right.
Yeah.
But James, you earlier in today's talk, you said, you know, this is heavy, it looks cool, but practically, maybe all I need is a pole with a gripper that was lightweight. See, so right now you're already starting to describe something that is not necessarily human in
Right.
appearance, but is providing the function you need.
I'm gonna do it.
Right?
This is the
He's
start
like,
of
it's
my
happening.
journey, honestly. I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna explore all things. I'm gonna 3D print a laser.
Would the
this year.
gripper be like a hand, or would you have like 10 digits on there? I mean, what does a gripper look like to you? You know?
Yeah, I mean.
He's like,
there's-
yes. That sounds good.
If
You
they
want?
have one.
Yeah. Do you have this thing? Can you?
Weirdly enough, there's open bionics, our open bionics, and then there's another open bionics who annoyingly come up first on Google search results. But they have like tri-limmy grip things, so that's it. Pretty much does pretty much everything you want. They all kind of have segments and they fold over, and you can just get pretty much whatever you want. And I mean, the problem is that we've got the pentadactyl limb, which is what's been created by Mother Nature, and it's had like millions of years of evolution to become so absolutely amazing. And it's basically a competition between if we can actually get there and do something and have this level of
Right.
like texture, feeling, touch, pressure, whatever. And if we don't get everything to match it, with technology, I think,
Yeah, it's not really that important, then I'm gonna do what the important things are,
yeah.
so.
But it's also kind of interesting as like,
Yeah.
if you considered it an art project to make a
Yeah.
technological arm that was like, it was a parallel of the human arm,
Yeah.
that would be cool,
That'd be
just
cool.
to see it and just be like, look,
Yeah.
look, God. It's like,
Check
yeah,
that
whatever.
out. Yeah.
If you
Rich is
really-
like, yeah.
No, I think this is like a telescoping one.
Yeah.
Would be rad, so to reach stuff, right?
Right, some of the stuff that Sophie's on an alternative limb project, she had like practically like an Inspector Gadget hand. Like,
Yeah, that's
it had so
cool.
much cool shit in it, and I was like, I can't do any of the. You can't do any of those things
No,
that this person
I
has in
can't.
this hand. Like, it was really cool. I mean, now it wasn't a hand in the traditional sense of a hand, but it had a lot of cool other things on there that most people's hands can't do. So
But-
that's the idea behind it, like, you know.
Do you think what's great about the human limb is that we've got something that is so multifunctional? Because
Right.
I don't want to be swapping my arm around. I don't know about you.
I don't like it either. Yeah, I know.
Like, if that's an Inspector Gadget arm that does so many things, if it can't do the one thing that I've just suddenly needed to do when I'm out in Texas, when I'm from the UK, like, I don't want to have to have gone, oh shit, I've forgotten it, and I
Yeah.
need to go and get my other arm. Like,
Yeah, you don't want
it
the-
has to be
the
amazing,
activity
even just
specific.
to,
Yeah, I have an activity-specific arm,
but
and
wouldn't it be great
if it wasn't.
yeah.
Well, I don't know if I ever told you about my insurance issue. Is when I tried to get my insurance to cover, I asked for the bionic hand, I asked for an activity specific, and I asked for a cosmetic arm for auditions. And that's because there was no one hand that could do all these three things, that has the option to do that. And their response back was, you're only missing one hand, we're not gonna give you three hands. It's like, if you can give me one hand that does all the three things I just asked for, great, where is it? I wanna know where it is.
And
Until
that's
then,
probably just being quite generous and just saying,
exactly.
that's only three. I want.
Yeah, exactly. There could be so many
Yeah.
other, to do all the things that I want to do. These three, I'm limiting it to these three, you know? So it's kind of frustrating when they say things like that because it doesn't exist, you know, the hand that's going to allow me to do yoga as well as, or water skiing, especially in water. I can't, not waterproof, not, you know, water, and then, you know, do my daily living tasks or whatever I need to do. So it's frustrating in that aspect to have to swap whole arm units and wear liners and socks and all these things, and so there's just a lot that needs to.
Yeah, I've been wearing the same pair of shoes for about a year because you have to get your Allen key out and